Convene the special meeting of the Folsom City Council for February 22nd, 2022. Do you have any final action to report, Mr. City Attorney?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. No final action tonight.
Okay. In which case, we are out of gavel tonight, so I'm just going to be Emerald Lagasse, and we're going to say BAM. We will convene the regular meeting of the Folsom City Council for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. If the clerk will call the roll, please.
Council members Rodriguez.
Here.
Aquino.
Here.
Chalem-Cherla.
Here.
Kozlowski.
Here.
And Howell.
Here. And if you'll all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's so nice not to have that feedback because we've been meeting on Zoom for so long and there's always a delay in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So that was the best one I've heard in a long time. And with that, we will move to agenda update. And we do have a couple of things that we're going to rearrange on the schedule. Our agenda item 16, which is the resolution of commendation for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs for the 2021 Excellence in Academics Athletic Award, will be heard after business from the floor. And then we will move our new business items, items 14 and 15, prior to the public hearing, which is item 13. Okay, and with that, we'll move to business from the floor.
Madam Mayor, you also have additional information for item 13, the public hearing you just mentioned. A copy was provided to the council, and they are also available on the table in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this takes us to business from the floor. We will have, right now, we have four requests to speak.
Madam Clerk, I apologize. It appears that there's also additional information for, I believe, item 15. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we will, our first speaker in our business from the floor will be Michael Harris. Michael will be followed by James Harville.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. It is a blessing to be here in front of y'all live and, of course, in color. So, as normally I do from time to time, come down. Black History Month, as you can imagine, is pretty busy for me. It's really a blessing and a curse at the same time because I don't get much sleep. But the idea that Carter G. Woodson, it was Negro Day, and then it moved to a week, and then it went to a month, and then as some of us know that Negro is Spanish for black, and now it's Black History Month. And then there's some folks that want to make it African, and I'm like, no, let's do that in Africa. But that was supposed to have been a joke, but you know, I need a drum, a hi-hat or something. The idea that people of African descent have been here, 1535, the source documentation with Hernan Cortez in this area, Vicente Guerrero fought and then became Mexico in this area. It wasn't that much Spanish or Mexican here in that time because the Native Americans were here. And they were in complete control, slinging arrows in the canyons, and you wasn't gonna stay here. But the Russians, and I'm gonna knock on wood that they don't come back the way they acting right now over there in Europe. But the idea that there were fur trappers were here. And then William Leidesdorff received the land grant, and then this little itty bitty thing in the water called gold, you know, the whole world came here. And initially it was Negro Bar, it was Granite City, and you know, we know the history. But the idea that we all have contributed, and unfortunately there's gonna be some people that have to go and put their life on the line to make sure we're all free. In Russia, all place in the middle of winter, I wouldn't want to be doing that. But we all have to like give a special thanks for that. And I was talking earlier Tomorrow is the anniversary of Iwo Jima, and we were going to celebrate that, but I can't call on my people back in North Carolina when their families are actually getting on planes and going to Russia. But tomorrow is the celebration of those few that survived with, let's just say it was a slaughterhouse in Iwo Jima. And the kids in here take a look at Iwo Jima. Everybody got hurt. If you got off there without a shell upside your head, let's just say you had a whole bunch of grandmas praying for you. Most people got injured in Iwo Jima. So again, it's Black History Month, and we're going to do Juneteenth. This year be the 22nd year. And before I sit down, I'll just say, where's Doug at? This guy right here. I'll be real brief with it. I'm getting old because he's retired. I need to retire with him. But we were doing things before the turn of the century that are finally making a difference today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, our next speaker will be Jim Harville. Jim will be followed by Jerry Burnell.
Yes, and that we're going to watch these.
Good evening, Mayor Howell and City Council members. Great to be back, isn't it? I'm not sure how I can follow Michael after Michael here, but I'll try. We'll cut right to the chase, and if we could have staff queue up have a little treat for you, and then I'll have a few comments after.
And while Lydia's doing that, just want to let people, never mind, I'll explain after.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the first steam locomotive to operate on these tracks since the late 50s. So there you go. My name is Jim Harville, president of Placerville and Sacramento Valley Railroad. I probably forgot that at the very beginning. And this is the culmination of 30 years of effort, hundreds of individuals, steadfast support from City of Folsom and other stakeholders in the region, and we are very proud to bring this to you tonight. One of the things that I want to reiterate right from the gate is that we never lose sight of the fact that we exist at the pleasure of the City Council. We're doing this for the community, we're doing this for you, and we're very grateful for your support over the years. So it is with a great dismay that I report today that there is still a devastating disconnect between the stated goals of the council and the project south of Highway 50. There's significant documentation both before we were forced to suspend operations on July 23rd, 2021, and in the months since that outline the steps needed for us to resume operations. We are literally bleeding thousands of dollars each month. It has grown to tens of thousands of dollars since July. We were notified by Kelly Butcher last week that the developers and city staff, I'm not sure where the disconnect is, and I'm certainly not pointing fingers, but that disconnect, or that the developers and city staff are now asking for a written commitment from California Public Utilities Commission that if the preliminary steps outlined by CPUC were completed, CPUC would allow operations to resume prior to the signalization project being fully completed. That's not how it works.
Said that this was the Highway 50 project. I believe you're talking about the connector.
No, the connector has fully committed to, you would directed Derek Manema, to find the
So what's
the money.
what's the issue at Highway 50?
It is the fact that it was clearly outlined by CPUC that if the city were able to complete the signage requirements and the pavement marking requirements, that they might consider, right, that to allow us to resume operations on a conditional basis until the rest of the signalization was
So you're not talking about Highway 50, you're talking
No.
about south of the freeway, which is
Exactly,
Folsom
Carrie,
Ranch.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So again, that'll be the extent of my comments. I would remind the council that the CPC is the state regulator in charge of this. We do not tell them what to do, nor does City of Folsom. And it's imperative for the continued existence of our program that we break this impasse. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jerry Burnett, and Jerry will be followed by Efstasios Pappas. And just a word, our speaker timer is not working this evening, so we'll give you a warning when you hit 30 seconds.
Mayor, members.
We're going to go from the bottom clock.
Okay. Mayor, members of council, it was a pleasure to take my family out and be able to be on a test on the steam locomotive. These passionate, really passionate, skilled people that have brought a fully restored, $1 million engine to our community, which really represents the history. One of the reasons we're here because of the first rail west of the Mississippi. They just need a little bit of help on these crossings south of 50. Developers are doing really well down there. I mean, really well down there. Let's see if we can get them held accountable to get some of those crossing protections in place so that they can get this thing on the track. So as to say again, with COVID, obviously they were delayed the last 2 years, but it would be great that our children and our residents and our visitors can enjoy this beautiful steam locomotive that the next speaker has spent probably, 25, 30 years acquiring and restoring and has on loan to our extrusion rail. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and just hopefully we can get a clear directive for the folks down there south of 50 that they can get those crossings done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Efstasios Pappas, please.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm the owner of the steam locomotive in question, and I just wanted to say that when I was approached by the folks at the PSVR here in Folsom, I had a number of other opportunities for the locomotive to have gone a number of different places in the country. But I was very impressed by the commitment and the bold vision that they had here, and the bold vision that the city of Folsom has for this railroad and for historic interpretation, historic preservation, and also tourism, and making sure that this railroad heritage doesn't completely just disappear. Originally, I was born and raised in Stockton, California. I always saw the potential of the Placerville branch, which this railroad is part of, as something that could be really something wonderful for local history and local historic preservation. So I chose for the locomotive to come here and work with PSVR so that we could do something and make something wonderful. You know, as you can see, we had our first operation. That was all very successful, and so there's a lot of great potential here. The phrase that I use is we stand on the edge of greatness, right? I mean, there's something very special that is happening with your own home railroad here. And, you know, so this locomotive is here. I make no profit off of it. Basically, we're operating under an agreement where the locomotive is sustainable. It will be here for a number of years and be something to help enrich this program and this history and in this community as well. I believe in what's happening here. So I just wanted to articulate my commitment to make sure that we make something happen here that's good for everybody. Now, the problem with steam locomotives is they're very expensive, and time is not always on your side. There are a number of inspections and things that are mandated by the federal government with steam locomotives that are very expensive, often sometimes called the 1472-day inspection. So every 15 years, whether you run it a day or you don't run it at all, you're committed to doing this very expensive inspection. And so, you know, partnering with PSVR, we are making sure that this program is sustainable, that the locomotive will remain in service and will make it through the next inspection, et cetera. But every opportunity that they have to be able to make some money to put in the bank to go towards that is very important to making sure that this is indeed sustainable and it doesn't just have to come out of somebody's pocket at the end of it. You know, so point being, the ongoing operation and sustainability is very much tied together with the STEAM program to be able to make it happen. So if there is a way to have some sort of, you know, resolution that everybody wins, I think that that's probably the best thing. And you can see more of these types of events happening here as quickly as possible. I think that would be good for everybody involved. I'm certainly not just speaking for myself, but for the organization as well. Anyway, if you have any questions about steam locomotives or anything like that, I'm your guy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you today. Thanks for the ride on Saturday.
So before we move on, I just want to give an opportunity for those who are calling or participating online. I don't see any hands raised, but I want to give a minute if there's anybody on the line who would like to speak under business from the floor. Okay, seeing none.
In which case, we're going to move on to item 16, which is the Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award for the Folsom Junior Bulldogs. And I guess this is going to be accepted by Angie Beiersdorf, who I think is going to read all the kids' names. Angie? Okay, do we have a microphone here that's working?
I can talk loud enough.
No,
That work?
I'm gonna read this first.
Okay, perfect.
So this is a resolution of commendation from the city of Folsom honoring the Folsom Junior Bulldogs for earning the 2021 Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award. Whereas the Folsom Junior Bulldogs is an official youth football and cheer association in Folsom, and whereas the Folsom Junior Bulldogs organization is committed to both academic and athletic excellence, and whereas members of the Folsom Junior Bulldog football and cheer teams maintain a grade point average of 3.0 or better during the football and cheer season, hopefully all year. But, and whereas this level of academic achievement merits recognition from the Board of Directors of Folsom Youth Football and Cheer and the City of Folsom. Now therefore I, Carrie M. Howell, Mayor of the City of Folsom, on behalf of the Folsom City Council and the Folsom community, we hereby extend commendations in the highest regard to members of the Folsom Junior Bulldogs, who earned the Excellence in Academics and Athletics Award 2021, and encourage their continued scholastic excellence in the future, passed and approved this 22nd day of February 2022.
Awesome.
There you go.
Thank you so much. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Can I speak just a little bit?
Yep.
So thank you for the City Council for allowing us to come out here tonight to represent these fine athletes that we have for football and cheer. They've worked so hard, not only throughout the football and cheer season, but also every day in their academics. And so we're so proud of them and so honored that the city is here to recognize them. And we have about 180 kids that are in our program right now. And as of tonight, there's 32 that are being represented as having a 3.0 or higher. So we're really proud of that and the hard work that they put in. So we'd like to recognize each and every one of them and bring them up here so they can receive a special certificate from the city of Folsom as well. So
I
we're
don't
going
have
to.
the certificates. Does somebody
Nope,
have them?
they're right over
Okay.
here. Yep. So Fallon, come over here. Okay. So this is Fallon. She's part of our executive board as well, and our president Xavier Williams is here too, to be able to recognize each student athlete that we have. So for the bronze level is a 3.0 to a 3.4 in their academics. So first we have Tucker Castrillo. Then we have Jordan Cruz, Ryan Ramos, Brady Silva, Mario Vasquez, Samuel Wright, and Dylan Wolf, which they're not here tonight. That's our bronze level. For our silver, that is a 3.5 to a 3.9 GPA. And so first we have Blake Ingsman, Addison Brown, Rustin Brown, Nicholas Chavez, Aiden Coy, Zane Grabowski, Ozzie Hayes, Aiden Lopez, Ethan O'Brien, Aaliyah Pierce, Jalen Pierce, Kara Sorensen, Katie Wagner, and then Brooke Wiegand. And then finally is our gold, which is a 4.0 or higher, which is a special honor, and we've got quite a few that are in that group, so that's the highest honor possible, which we're really proud of this group of individuals. We have a few people that aren't here. Addison Benavides, Anthony Benavides, Bronson Bambino, AJ Cruz, Haley Edwards, William Hakes, Jonathan Hayes, Victoria King, Jackson Murray, Sierra Osterling, and Nick Wegner. We're so proud of each and every one of them. So thank you very much for letting us come out today. We really appreciate it.
And on behalf of the city, I just want to thank all the parents and the people that support those kids and allow them to do what they do. They're the future of the city of Folsom.
We couldn't do it without them.
Thank you.
It's a huge difference. Thank you.
Oh, you can't leave.
No, they have to go home and do their homework. Okay, so with that, we will move back to our consent calendar. Does anybody have anything they want to pull?
I'll move items 1 through 12 unless someone wants something pulled.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Council members Rodriguez?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Howell.
Yes. And as I said earlier, we're going to take new business in advance of the public hearing. So, well, items 14 and 15, we already did 16. So first item will be item 14. You want to announce the item?
Sure. So item 14 is nomination of City of Folsom representative to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Folsom Prison. I'm passing down ballots to the council members right now. So this is one of the committees that Folsom appoints representatives to. This one is a little bit different. It's established by penal code, and the City of Folsom nominates 2 local residents to serve on the committee, and then those nominations are confirmed by the warden. So before you tonight are 2 applications from Cynthia Gibbs and Jim Silva. Just one. I'm sorry, I should have said, the terms of the 2 representatives are staggered. So the council members are filling out their ballots now, then they'll hand them down to me and we'll read out the votes for from each member. Okay, so Vice Mayor Rodriguez votes for Jim Silva. Councilmember Chalem Cherla votes for Jim Silva. Councilmember Aquino votes for Jim Silva. Councilmember Mike Kozlowski votes for Jim Silva. And Mayor Howell votes for Jim Silva. So Mr. Silva is officially nominated, and we will convey that nomination to the warden for their confirmation. Okay, I will. Okay, that takes us to our next item this evening, which is item number 15. This is the creation of an ad hoc city council subcommittees and direction to staff. This item is before you this evening as a follow-up to the City Council's February 8 workshop discussion, where it was proposed that the council may want to consider appointing subcommittees to examine certain areas of city businesses. So staff has brought this item back before you tonight to seek further direction from the council. You'll see that these were the 3 subcommittees that were originally proposed. And on the next slide, we're just presenting, this is some of the direction that staff will need if the ad hoc committees are to be formed at this time.
And I'm going to ask Councilmember Aquino, whose request it was that we give consideration to this. I understand that you had some comments you'd like to make.
Yeah, after thinking about this a little bit more and talking to a few people, what I'm going to suggest that we do is just start with one committee, and that is one to basically inventory and evaluate all city-owned properties to see if there's something that's being underutilized or not utilized, and kind of take stock of the kind of the infrastructure, the amenities that we have, where we're deficient, and and make some recommendations as to whether those properties could be used for perhaps increased Parks and Rec programming, or perhaps we could lease something out. I am in favor of some kind of effort for retail recruitment to fill some of our vacant retail spaces, but I think that is best left to the Greater Folsom Partnership, because I think it makes sense for some property owners to be involved in that, and many of those, if not most of those property owners, are not Folsom residents, and unless the city attorney tells me differently, I'm not sure a non-Folsom resident could be a member of an ad hoc committee. So I think that one we ought to leave to the discretion of the Greater Folsom Partnership, but possibly with some resources provided by the city. And then as far as what I kind of referred to as the economics of land use planning, I'm still very much committed to this idea, and I think as the council eventually adopts some zoning code updates, just making sure that zoning, our new zoning code reflects our desires in terms of economic development, and make sure that we're maximizing those opportunities. But again, for right now, my recommendation is we just do one subcommittee, and that is to evaluate and inventory the city properties. My guess is most of those properties fall under the purview of the Parks and Rec Department. So what I would suggest is that we have 2 council members, 3 Parks and Rec commissioners, city staff, the Greater Folsom Partnership, possibly a couple planning or historic district commissioners. But I don't know from Mr. City Attorney, do we have to actually come back with the specific names? Because I'm inclined to just leave the specifics to the city manager and her executive management team.
Thank you, Councilmember Aquino. Madam Mayor and the members of the City Council, one, you do have discretion to appoint the most qualified person, even if that person is not a Folsom resident.
Okay.
On the ad hoc committee. And you can give instruction to staff right now to identify the council members, the commission members you would like to be on the committee, and city staff if you like. And with those information, you may adopt Resolution 10809.
If we go down that route, I would be very interested in being a part of this committee.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I mean, I know the Parks and Rec Commission has some standing committees on their own. I'm not sure if one is facilities or not. So I wouldn't presume to know which Parks and Rec commissioners should serve on this committee. But
And I'd request that it's only 2 of them. Because I think the number of people that we're talking about, if you go through staff, I think Lorraine, the Parks and Rec director, is going to have to be involved. And other other city staff may need to be there as well, and I think we leave that up to Elaine, but just so as not to turn this into 20 people.
But so, so then, Mr. Wong, the actual specific names have to come back and be approved by the city council at some point?
You can do it that way, or you can give enough direction to a city manager if you want the city manager to make the
All right.
selection.
Then I'm going to move that we approve.
Council member, with
We've
the
and
great
we've got
list,
request to speak on this.
yeah, with the great list you have given, who can be a part of, I think I would like to request maybe one or two passionate residents about those who has the understanding. In addition to your great list, and I agree, we don't need too many, but at least, accept a resident, one or two as well. Thanks.
Okay. Then how about I make the motion and we can have further discussion after that? Does that work?
Yeah, because we do have a couple of requests
Okay.
from the public to
Okay, that's
address
fine. Do
this.
the public first. Yeah.
Okay, so our first speaker this evening will be Deborah Grassel. Deborah will be followed by Terry Sorensen. And again, our speaker timer isn't working, so we'll just wave at you when you have about 30 seconds left, Deborah. You bet.
Good evening, Council. My name is Deborah Grossel. I live in Folsom, a longtime resident. I live in the Lake Natoma Shores Preserve area. And when I read about the 3 ad hoc committees, I had concern because it seemed that they were being proposed under conditions that were pretty slanted toward builders, developers, Chamber of Commerce, tourism, all without input from the residents. And as we know, the historic district where I live has been pretty busy with a lot of different kinds of projects aimed at increasing tourism, the economy, and so on and so forth. And residents don't really feel that they've had enough opportunity to participate on boards, on commissions, to be able to represent their interests and their values. So these 3 ad hoc committees seemed to us that perhaps this was something that was going to happen again, and perhaps it was going to be discussing a lot of properties that are in the historic district, because the city owns a lot of properties in the historic district. So if you would, please consider putting residents, not necessarily those that are attached to the Historic District Commission or the Planning Commission or any other commission or committee, but real residents who would like to be able to volunteer their time and their efforts and could represent their neighbors who live in the area where these city resources are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker will be Terry Sorensen, and Terry will be followed by Robert Goss.
Good evening. My name is Terry Sorensen. Live in the same neighborhood as Deborah, 1216 Forest Street. Lived there since about 2005. I had a lot of concerns when I saw the staff report concerning this project. Some of those have been leaved now. That sounds like it's being narrowed down. The proposal now is that it's being narrowed down to usage that appears to be more related to recreation and other things of that type. So I would second, though, a lot of what Deborah had to say, is I do think we need, rather than just committees represented, just general citizens represented on this committee. I guess it's not a subcommittee anymore, it's a committee of the whole, I guess. So I just think we need more input from the general public, would be one thing. And I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but I guess I will. I don't know, I sent out a memo today. I don't know how many of you received it, had a chance to read it. So this is a little bit of a repeat. It was a matter of some concern to me when I saw that Joe Giladari, I'm sure I butchered his name, of the Greater Folsom Partnership was the only individual who had been named to date to serve on, at that point it was subcommittees. And I've met the gentleman several times. He's an impressive individual.
He's in the room, just so you know.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything bad. I know he has a reputation as a strong proponent of development and economic growth in the city. And while I certainly feel that he may have a lot to offer as a subcommittee member or the committee member now, I was somewhat bothered by why he alone was the only name that was brought up, because I think where the committee should go and where it is going now is to represent far more of the city's interest than just the economic development end. And it seems they're going that way, so I'm happy with that.
I just want you to understand that this recommendation came as a result of a financial forecast workshop that we had a few weeks ago, and it's about increasing revenues to the city to meet financial conditions that we expect to change a couple of years down the road. So this was all about economics.
All right, then I would think that the proposal should make that clear, if that's what you're doing, so that people know what's being voted on, what's not being voted on, and what this committee intends to do. I think that the staff really wasn't too clear on what the committee, or at that point, subcommittees were supposed to do, and asked the council for for advice on where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And I don't think they've ever received it, and from what I've heard tonight, I'm still not quite sure that the message has been conveyed.
That's why we're talking about it now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we agendized it today so that we could have public comment about it and make choices like that.
Okay. Well, it came with proposals to vote on. I thought it was going to be voted on tonight, and I didn't think you guys were really quite ready to make that move based on what I'd seen and based on the staff report.
Well, and 2 of the subcommittees have already gone away.
Okay.
At least for the moment. And Mr. Gagliardi is the executive director of FedCorp, which is the Folsom Economic Development Corporation, which works for the city on economic development matters. So that's why his name happened to come up in the discussion last time.
I'm quite aware of that, and that's why I brought up the point. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker will be Robert Goss, and Robert will be followed by Bruce Klein. And I'll ask now if there's any speakers on the line who would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand. All right, Robert.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, real quick, I just would like to volunteer. I am 3.5 years retired. I'm just a resident now, but I'm still engaged. I still love the city, and I'd just like to help. I appreciate that this is a follow-up to the workshop discussion, and I'd just like to put my name in the hat to assist. And Madam Clerk, my apologies. I did not intend to speak on item 14. It was 13. So please.
Oh, okay. So 14, not 13? 13, not 14.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Klein, you are up next.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Bruce Klein, 30-year Folsom resident. I applaud your efforts to move this item forward. I think it's great. I loved actually all the committees and really think there can be some real good value to that. I, like the other speakers, would highly encourage the council to broaden the scope of the committee to include community residents. Joe G., I love Joe. Joe has obviously probably the most history on economic development items in our city currently. Going back a little bit of time, historically, we had Joe Lukey in-house, and by way of example, there was a survey of all surplus properties done by Joe, and a number of those properties sold. After that, economic development moved over to Joe G. and his shop, and they've done a really good job. However, what I think needs to happen is to expand the pool so there's a lot more different voices within that pool and looking at different things. Maybe this list will just come back to the council and it won't be that ad hoc group making policy recommendations in terms of a sale, but new voices, new ideas, new thinking to help supplement the historical good that Joe G. brings, I think would be fabulous. One example that immediately came to mind is a guy named Lance Klug, Kerry's appointment many times. I mean, Lance kind of is this in his sort of wheelhouse. Robert, of course, would be fabulous, as well as other residents. So I would also echo what Councilmember Aquino said, and that is you look at not only surplus properties, but all leased properties. I know for a fact that there's underutilized properties that the city should be looking at. Look at those properties that have leases and when those leases are going to come up. And maybe there's now park opportunities for daycares, childcare, et cetera, that had to go away during COVID that could come back again. In Sheldon Park, that was a great child center there for a while, and some of those things fall apart. So anyway, great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, you have no hands raised from the online audience, so council may continue.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move to adopt resolution number 10809 to create an ad hoc subcommittee to inventory and evaluate city property, not only potential surplus property, but not utilized or underutilized city property. Having those committees made up of council members, commissioners, city staff, residents, and the Greater Folsom Partnership. I prefer that we leave the details on that to the city manager and her team. And also, I don't want to dilly-dally on this. I'd like to see a report brought back to the council by July 1st, if that is reasonable.
I agree, because this is information that, as we discussed during that financial workshop, we need to have this information back as quickly as possible. And I'm just going to add one thing to it, because I just want to make sure that people are clear. The objective of this was not to find city property to sell off to forestall a financial issue that we expect to occur 2 years from now, because I want to remind everybody that there has been a change in state law, and in order for the city to sell anything, it has to be declared surplus property. And if once it is declared surplus property, the first offer has to be to affordable housing developers. So given those restrictions, it is unlikely that the city of Folsom is going to be selling anything at market rate. So I just want people to understand that I think that the objective of this ad hoc committee is more about better utilization of existing facilities and increasing revenue that under normal circumstances has gone into the Parks and Rec Department.
I'll second, and I'll echo the time frame. I think that's a great idea.
Madam Mayor, may I seek clarification as to how many members on the subcommittee?
Can I ask a question first before you do that one, because it's on the same topic?
Yes, sir.
Is it okay for the members of the city council who are appointed to this ad hoc committee to choose the rest of the membership of the public, so that it doesn't have to come back before us as a election process here?
Yes, sir.
So that it can
You make the
expedite
call.
that?
I actually don't want it to come back to the council. I'd rather.
Well, I wanted to clarify that first and then suggest a friendly amendment
fine with
that the ad hoc committee, city council members choose 5 members of the public who are not already commissioners, Joe G, or staff members.
Okay.
And does the council have any direction as to which council members you would like to see on the committee?
Well,
I'm very interested.
Rosario requested, and Sarah, were you interested in serving?
Yes, I'm interested.
I was assuming you would, since you suggested it.
Friendly amendment then further nominating Rosario and Sarah to be the ad hoc committee
And
members.
how many committee members total?
I don't think there needs to be a cap on it, but if we say that there are 2 city councilors, at least 2 members of the Parks and Rec Commission, whatever number of city staff is appropriate without becoming a burden, and then 5 members, other members of the public, I think that whatever
And the
that
Greater
total
Folsom
is.
Partnership representative.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe something no more than 12 people, but I think that staff's involvement is really going to be more staff time as opposed to necessarily contributing anything other than information. And it is not going to be this ad hoc committee that sets policy for anything. That
No,
report's going to come back to the
inventory,
council.
evaluate, possibly make some recommendations, but of course, any decision that's made will come to the city council and will be open for public. But just want to put on there, though, that, we'd like this to wrap up about July 1st.
And anticipating this, Lorraine Prigioni has already done quite a bit of work in terms of doing that inventory.
Great.
That's great.
So Steve, to your question about how many, I think what we landed on is 10 plus staff. Because it would be two 2 or 3, Joe G. or somebody from the Greater Folsom Partnership, and then 5 other members of the public.
Understood.
Yeah.
And council members Aquino and Rodriguez will select the remaining committee members.
And and staff wouldn't be members of the committee as subcommittee as I see it. We would
Correct.
come and go.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yes, thank you.
And you have to meet once a week, every week until July 1st.
No, but I mean, I envision some site visits, right? There'll be some homework involved.
That's
so-
awesome.
So that's my motion.
Yeah.
May I just clarify one thing, Councilmember Aquino? In your original motion, you also mentioned 2 planning commissioners or HDC members, and I just,
I'm fine with just Parks
So just
Commissioners. I
Parks.
think the majority
So-
of this property is going to fall under Parks and Rec.
so that gets us to our 10 members.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think we're comfortable with that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Council members Rodriguez?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Howell?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that moves us back to,
That takes us to item 13, I believe. I'm jumping around a bit tonight. So item 13 will be the continued public hearing number 4 under the California Voting Rights Act regarding the composition of the city's voting districts pursuant to Elections Code Section 10010.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Stephen Wong, City Attorney. I just want to clarify for item 15, resolutions 10810 and 10811 have both now been tabled. Okay, thank you. And,
no, they're gone.
okay,
Do you need a motion to table them?
that would be
That
ideal,
would be
just to
ideal,
clarify
right?
the record.
I will make a motion to table Resolution 10810 and Resolution 10811.
I'll second.
Doesn't that kind of leave them hanging out there, though?
Yeah.
I don't
We
know that
may
I want to leave them
revisit it.
hanging out there.
We can re-agendize it any time then, right?
Correct.
But if we're not going to do
To
it,
a
why don't
date
we?
unspecified, I guess, is my tabling motion.
We'll just take both off agenda if you want to vote to take both items off agenda.
Or we just take action to not approve them, and then they go away.
Yes, ma'am.
We can always put them back on in the future.
In which case, I will make a resolution not relative to Resolution 10810 and 10811 that we not create those ad hoc committees.
I will retract my motion and second that one.
Just try to eliminate lingering paperwork. Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Council members Rodriguez?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Howell?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for indulging me. So moving on to item 13, Stephen Wong, City Attorney. This is the continued public hearing, number 4, to transition to by-district election. At the last council meeting last Tuesday, the 15th, the City Council selected 2 draft preferred maps prepared by the city's demographer with input from the City Council and the public, and continue the hearing to this meeting in order to select one final preferred map. I will leave the maps to the city's demographer, Mr. Doug Yoakum.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mayor, City Council members, Doug Yoakum. Good to be back. I will not spend too much time. I'll just display for you what you came up with last time. And if you have any questions, we can go into very close detail on these maps. In other words, we can go down to the street level. This is preferred map number 1 that was posted a week ago on the website after the last meeting. So it is eligible for adoption tonight, if you so choose. Then we have preferred map number 2. Oops. Same thing, you drew this last meeting. It's been on display on your city's website for 7 days, so it is eligible for adoption today. Happy to answer any questions or to focus closely on any specific areas that you're interested in seeing more closely. I will do the same for the public if that's what they'd like to do. But today's meeting is mostly not me to hear from the public what they thought of what the products that were posted last week, the 2 maps that are eligible for adoption today, and then you get to make your decision about what you would like to do. So I'm done. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but.
Madam Mayor, I have one question.
Go right ahead.
Doug, do you have the demographic charts available should a question arise about those?
Yes.
Because I suspect somebody will be interested.
Those are here.
I know we were given the hard copies of them with the large maps.
This is.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were able to
preferred-
display it
okay,
in case
okay.
there was a question.
We have the demographic sheets on each one. If anybody has a question or needs to look at it, we can bring it up just as quickly as I just did.
Thank you.
Just to let you know when you are ready to open the public hearing, you have 4 requests to speak from in-house audience members, and you have 1 raised hand online.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
No.
Rosario, is that a question?
No question.
Okay. Then let's get some input from the public.
Okay. So with the public hearing now open, we will call first Muriel Braunstein-Dooley, and Muriel will be followed by Scott Rafferty. And again, we'll set the timer and wave at you when you have 30 seconds left.
Mayor Howell and council members, my name is Muriel Brownstein. I live in Natoma Station. These are comments that I've made before. The Fair Maps Act mandates that 4 priority factors be taken into consideration when creating districts: contiguity, communities of interest, easily definable boundaries, and compactness. The Act prohibits partisan gerrymandering and designing districts to favor incumbents so that each has his or her own district. We are asking that you follow these guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Scott Rafferty, and Scott will be followed by Teresa Garcia.
Well, we all want some closure on this, and no map is going to satisfy everyone. It's impossible to accomplish everything in one map. I've tried, and it never works. But I think the problem is that there are significant parts of the community that really don't feel heard, and that's why I'm reluctant to say that either of these maps is eager as we are to have district elections, that either of them really is ready for the next 10 years. So I hope there's a process to maybe have one more hearing, maybe a workshop that's a little more informal where you can talk to each other and outside this formality, and people can have the maps. The maps aren't here. People can't really compare them if they're in the audience. I'd certainly support that. Otherwise, we're all looking to solve this problem. I think we know it's going to happen now. That was a trust issue for a while. And I think we should all be on the same page to make it correspond to neighborhoods. So that's less definitive than what I would hope to be able to offer you, but we should all be on the same side making this work. And I just keep coming back to Antioch, where the mayor was horribly against this. The League of Women Voters were horribly against it. I said I was a greedy lawyer from out of town, lived 10 miles away. And we had a workshop one Saturday morning with coffee and donuts, and the mayor at the end of it, I said, I learned a lot about your city today. And he said, I learned a lot about my city today. And I think that's the spirit in which you should approach this. So I hope that's possible. And if it is, I think we'll all be a lot closer to resolving this. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Teresa Garcia, and Teresa will be followed by Robert Goss.
Thank you, council members. My name is Teresa Garcia. I'm a member of the Broadstone community and have been participating in these mapping meetings. The California Voting Rights Act exists to ensure that protected classes have choice or influence when they elect candidates. But the council did not indicate any active protection of these classes when they started redrawing the maps at the last meeting. And I found it difficult to try to track that. Folsom's population does include 3 protected classes, as the demographer's data shows. But in spite of the council comments that there are no concentrations of minorities, the maps, the demography seems to tell a different story. But again, everything was done so heatedly and quickly and hurriedly that it was very hard to keep track for me. They were hastily drawn, they were admittedly messy, and they ended up, in my opinion, dividing neighborhoods and communities, which is, in my understanding, is a violation of the Fair Maps Act. I strongly still disagree with splitting the South of 50 district. The council intentionally underpopulated that area rather than addressing the eventual population increase by the 2030 redistricting process. And I think that consequently ended up using up that 10% variation per the guidelines, which left us at the point where we're struggling to keep communities of interest, neighborhoods, and protected classes more cohesive. And I urge that we take additional time to refine these maps to create equitable districts that honor neighborhoods and their unique interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker will be Robert Goss, and Robert will be followed by Mike Reynolds.
I have a little bit of a contrary opinion to this. I think you did actually pretty good work through all these meetings. It's very, very hard. So congratulations on that. It's never going to be perfect. You have to just make it the best as you can. However, having said that, I think you missed an opportunity for compactness with District 2 relative to District 5. It was one of the late comments that added Briggs Ranch to District 2, where I think Willow Creek East would have been, which would be right to the right of the word Folsom on the blue area there, that adding Willow Creek East to District 2 as opposed to 5 would keep District 2 much more compact, and I think you have a logical boundary of power lines there, and yes, there is an east-west power line that it's following now, but there's also a north-south power line that would provide sort of a logical boundary there as well. I understand that you're up against the calendar as well. If there is additional interest in one more go-round, that's a suggestion I would like to submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mike Reynolds.
Council, nice to see you all in person and unmasked. I've made the comments before in email and just reiterating them for the public record tonight since we're down to the final 2. As the president of the Residents Association, the Residents Association endorses the second map, the one being shown here. The Natomas creates a natural boundary that we feel like aligns, most of those areas all north of that and on the east side have much more in common with the historic district and the river and the water elements than taking out a small chunk of Briggs Ranch, which I think you would argue needs to stay intact with that large neighborhood. So just want to make sure that's on the record.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those were all the requests to speak from the audience in the room. Next we'll...
Sorry, my card said 13 and 15.
What?
Sorry, 2 cards, I was trying to do 15.
Come on
Krista,
down.
I did point that out that he did have 13 and 15.
Okay.
Good evening. Sorry, Krista.
We still only get 3 minutes.
Good evening again, members of the council. I also...
She has a really loud horn at the end of 3 minutes now, Bruce.
Bruce Klein, 30-year resident, Folsom. I echo what Robert said. This has been a very, very challenging process. And I know you all have worked hard and looked at a bunch of maps and recirculated a bunch of maps. I was really expecting the public to weigh in, and I kept waiting for comments to pop in. And I think the time that the public's going to weigh in is when they get their ballot in the mail, you know, in November, for the November election, and they say, what the heck happened? And where were you? But the reality is, I mean, there's been a handful of people who've been plugged into this thing and watched it. I want to say thanks very much to Sarah and YK. Both of you called me because I've been pretty plugged into this thing. You called me after the meetings, and I really appreciate that both of you did that. Version 1, I don't know how to go back to that.
Be happy to help you.
Thanks. Oh, sorry, I could have done that.
After all, you are an attorney, right?
Yeah. Version 1.
He's an attorney, but he had an assistant to do stuff like that for him.
Version 1 does suffer from the problems that I talked about on many, many, many occasions. Our neighborhood is right there in the corner. So this particular triangle of some 15 to 1,700 residents is aligned with this area and this area. It is not aligned with the historic district. In fact, it takes a long walk to get to the next residence since we're separated by the prison and the municipal complex. Then you go this direction, it's even further to residents. I bet it's a mile and a half as the crow flies. And so that area there, the triangle, Councilmember Kozlowski's pork chop, doesn't belong in that area. My maps had it tied with Briggs and the Willow Creek area. Council elected not to go that way. I still contend that's the best map. Not because I worked on it, but I just think it's the most compact. If you do go back again and you want to continue to look at it and you think you have more time, and the desire is to not split south of 50, because that's really where your problems have come in. When you tried to split south of 50, it's really hard to make, and I spent, I don't know how many hours trying to come up with a map that made some sense. If we go to version 2, if you in fact decide to go with a map. Bruce. Sorry?
Sorry, can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
What is the difficulty that you see with splitting south of 50? Because if we draw a border, as we did in one of the two maps, right down on Bidwell, there is effectively zero population to the west of that currently. So it has no effect on our choosing of districts from a population standpoint in the vacuum that we have to make these choices in.
Right, when I played with the maps, and you all have played with the maps, and you're squeeze this one, whack-a-mole, whatever you want to call it, as soon as you split it like that and had this area, now you got to try to find neighborhoods to pull into and still get to your 1440.
But Mike makes a really good point. No one lives there right now.
I understand that, but
So-
I played with the maps, you all played with the maps, and nothing came out great in terms of keeping neighborhoods together.
Okay.
And so I don't know, Mike, Councilmember Kozlowski, I don't know why the challenge existed. It certainly existed for me, and I think it existed for you when you were working on it on 2 meetings. And I know Councilmember Aquino has tried also when you split it that way. But at the end of the day, I mean, you came up with something here. I agree with Robert that this neighborhood here, these two, that swap that occurred at the very end, I don't think was a good move. I do like and appreciate that this area of Willow Creek and Cimarron is tied to this area of Briggs, and it makes it logical. Does it make it more logical if it flowed through here? I think so, but that's why you get paid the big bucks. Bottom line is, I think there is a potential for some improvement in a further meeting. I'll leave that to your own devices. I would strongly urge you, if you're going to select a map tonight, please select version 2.
Thank you. So, one last call for any speakers in the audience. Anybody I overlooked, passed over? Okay, so we'll move to callers online. Daniela Savalingham. Go ahead. When you're ready, you can speak. I can see you.
Hi, thanks. It's actually Danielle Savalingham. And I
Hang on for just a second, Daniela. We're turning up your volume.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'm not sure who said it. It might have been Councilmember Kozlowski. It may not have been, though. Who said that no one lives south of 50. Well, actually, I do live south of 50. I just moved here 3 weeks ago and looking to get involved and learn more about my city. I brushed up on what was going on here with my district elections. Not fully up to speed, so bear with me, but as far as I can tell, at least one of the proposed maps does split south of 50, which is a distinct community of interest, and I think it should remain together. So I would discourage the council from accepting any map that splits south of 50. And as I understand it from reading Lynn Evans Bonzel's written comments tonight, the proposed maps would also split her community's interest, Prairie Oaks, apart. We should really aim to keep communities of interest like south of 50 and Prairie Oaks together to ensure that communities of interest are adequately represented. I think, just echo the comments of a lot of the other people tonight in saying, and I think this is coming particularly, I thought Teresa articulated the issue very well when she said that we should take more time to create equitable districts that honor communities. Thank you.
Danielle, I just want to point out one thing. The whole thing about splitting of Highway 50, that was being done west of East Bidwell, where there are no houses yet. So I'm pretty sure you live east of East Bidwell.
Understood, and thank you.
And just so you know the background, the reason why it was discussed, and you must not have been on the call for that conversation, but it was because the development west of East Bidwell is expected to be a few years down the road, and we were hoping that that there would be equal representation for people east and west of East Bidwell, with keeping in mind the restrictions that we have to work under and over for the size of the district, and knowing that we're not going to be able to redraw these lines for another 10 years. So just a historical point.
And I understood it. At least one map, I think it was called the Dooley map, kept all of south of 50 together. So I thought it was feasible, given the restrictions, the demographic restrictions that you are limited by. But I would maintain that all of south of 50, we're all going to be the newbies, and that connects us. We are a community of interest, whether presently being populated or whether that's going to happen in a few years. That's my opinion as a resident, and just from studying it. But take that for what it's worth. I am new.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome to Folsom. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, I just wanted to make sure if there's any callers on the line. If you've called in, it's *3 to comment, or raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. Okay, seeing no requests to speak online.
Okay, any comments from the council members? Any questions of Doug?
None.
No questions of Doug, but if the city attorney could just, some people have suggested that we take a little bit more time, and if you can please speak to the timeline and the deadlines that we're up against.
Thank you, Councilmember Aquino and Madam Mayor, members of City Council. The transition process itself, by law, dictates a very compact and short time within which the City Council has to hold 5 mandatory public hearings. This is public hearing number 4. So the City Council has gone down this path for several months. And within public hearing number 4, this is the 3rd public hearing number 4 to give the community and the public extra opportunities to provide input and help the council make the decision as pertains to the draft maps. Unfortunately, the City Council is facing a statutory deadline with respect to public hearing number 4. The deadline ends on the 24th. Today is the 22nd, but there's no time to make any adjustment to any of the maps between now and the 24th, because anytime a map is adjusted, the map has to be published and made available to the public for 7 days. The council does not have that kind of time.
And just a point of clarification, we've had a number of references tonight to other maps that are not, that were evaluated at one of the previous meetings. At the last council meeting, the council came down to preferred map number 1 and preferred map number 2. So given the time frame that a city attorney has just spelled out, we must choose one of those 2 maps because those are the ones that have been circulated to the general public and available at numerous locations for the last 7 days, because the last time we made these changes was a little over, 7 days and 4 hours ago. So that's an important factor, because we do not, as much as everybody would like to take another week or another 2 weeks, we cannot do that. If we do that, we will not be in compliance with state law, and that threatens our legal position with those that are currently suing us. So that's really not an option. The council has no choice tonight except to pick either preferred map 1 or preferred map 2.
Do you want me to make a motion and see where it goes?
Sure, if you'd like.
I will make a motion that we adopt preferred map number 2.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you finished everything, right? I know you are explaining to the community.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Rosario made a motion. Do we have a second for map 2?
YK, seconds for map 2.
Okay.
Just a comment before we
Yes.
call the question.
Please do.
I am perfectly happy with either of these maps being the one that we end up choosing. I will reiterate a point that was made on a couple of different occasions in what I said earlier, just for clarity. The preferred map number 1, I like it better for one particular reason, and that's that south of 50 is divided into 2 pieces. We know that there will eventually be a large population down there, and having it all concentrate in one district, to me, feels like we will end up with one district by the end of this census cycle that is significantly overpopulated, to Mr. Rafferty's point earlier tonight. So with that one distinction, I think that the map number 1 is superior, but as I said, I'm perfectly happy with either of these maps going forward.
I feel the same. I think either 1 or 2 is fine. I'm just going to throw out 2 and see where it goes.
Okay, we're going to officially close the public hearing. So go on, and I guess that I will make my comment. My personal preference is map number 1, and it's for 2 different reasons. One, because I believe that the development west of East Bidwell, south of the freeway, is going to take a few years, and I do not want to get to the end of the period and find out that once that development does take place, that district, as it would appear on map number 2 and would be District 3, would be severely overpopulated. I would prefer not to see that happen. And the other reason why I prefer map number 1 is because I think it's better with respect to the percent deviation than map number 2 is, because we are at a total deviation of 3.05% versus 9.67% on map number 2, and that puts us very close to the legal limit set by the California Voting Rights Act, which is 10%. So that's my reasons for preference for number 1. Sarah, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I have some comments. Doug, could you put map 1 back up there? I just want to point something out. So I spent hours and hours and hours on Dave's redistricting site. And I'm going to tell you why I think splitting south of 50 is problematic. And that is, I understand your point about, west of East Bidwell, there's only 27 residents there right now. But when you split south of 50, it limits your options because you can no longer divide the city horizontally. So you can't use, if you're trying to use major streets, Iron Point, Broadstone Parkway, Oak Avenue Parkway. You have more options when you don't divide south of 50, which is why one of the reasons I prefer to keep south of 50 whole. As kind of was mentioned earlier today, this process is a giant jigsaw puzzle. There was never going to be a perfect map. I did not vote for either of these two maps last meeting because I do think that there are some problems. More neighborhoods are going to be divided than I think was necessary. However, because we are up against this deadline, I prefer map 2 for a few different reasons. Number one, I do think south of 50 is a community of interest, and I do think it should be kept whole. And of course, it is going to be a burden for whoever represents that area, but it just kind of is what it is. We don't know. There could be another recession, another pandemic, or whatever. We don't know what could affect building down there. The things that I don't like about map 1, in either map we're dividing Prairie Oaks, and I'm sad about that. And it's not along what I would consider major streets. But in addition to dividing Prairie Oaks, map 1, which I don't support, splits Lexington Hills along Bower Circle, which is just very strange. And as I said at the last meeting, if you tried to explain to somebody who didn't understand the boundaries what the boundaries are, I don't even know how you would explain map number 1 when it comes to that district. Map 1 also splits the neighborhood, and I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called, but around Lemby Drive, it splits that neighborhood into 2. Willow Creek is divided from Briggs Ranch. That's another reason I don't like map 1. As far as map 2, which is to me the better of the two, I do want to address a comment by Linda Holderness that came in today, because she mentioned that map 2 divides her neighborhood, Chelsea Ridge, from the rest of Broadstone. So Doug, if you could go to map 2. So Chelsea Ridge is that little neighborhood right there in orange, right below Scholar Way. And I'm very familiar with that neighborhood because I've had friends who lived in it over the years, but I confess I did not know that was part of Broadstone. And I've never understood why Broadstone is on both sides of East Bidwell, but she is correct. She is not, that neighborhood is not going to be connected to Broadstone east of East Bidwell, nor the Broadstone west of East Bidwell. The only, I guess, saving grace about this is that at least does follow major streets, Broadstone Parkway and Scholar Way right there. So again, nothing was going to be perfect, but I think of these two options, map 2 is the better one.
And I think I just want to remind everybody that despite the fact that state law changed, and there are people that are sitting in this room that would say that, this is best for Folsom. I don't believe it is. We have a very diverse group of people that are sitting up here right now. We have a fairly diverse community, but we do not have major ethnic, racial, varying economics, religious. We don't have that kind of a situation here in Folsom. We've got diversity, and it's spread across every boundary you can think of all over the city of Folsom. So I think that this requirement to district brought on by the state of California and those who chose to sue the city of Folsom to force this to happen is a solution in search of a problem that doesn't exist. I have had a lot of strangers in the last couple of months ask me why on earth we are doing this. Why is the city not fighting this? So I've explained to them that so far the city of Santa Monica has spent $8 million trying to fight redistricting, the fact that they have to district in the first place. I don't know the details or the demographics in the city of Santa Monica. It's very, very compact and much higher density than the city of Folsom is. But, and we're all hoping that what ultimately happens is that the state Supreme Court overturns the decision in Santa Monica, and then we'll have another conversation about this. But the feedback that I'm getting from John Q. Public is they understand that right now all 5 council members are accountable to them. In this districting process, I think those that believe that all they have to do is make one phone call or that one council member is magically going to be able to solve any problem that they might come up with, they're going to be sorely disappointed when they find out that that is in fact not true, that you will still have to get approval of the council, because individual council members don't get their own budget. They don't get to decide what streets get repaved, what pipelines get fixed. They have no control. We have no control over the school district. So none of that is actually going to be true in reality. So if you want something done in your neighborhood, you're still going to have 3 votes of 5 people on the Folsom City Council. It's still going to take 3 votes out of 5 people to pass a budget. So all of the things that everyone thinks that these districts are going to solve, it's not going to do that. And, you know, I'm already seeing issues with neighborhoods thinking that they have to pit themselves against one another, when that's not what the city of Folsom should be about, nor has it ever been that way. And I'm disappointed, because I think that just the process of coming up with the maps is bringing out all of the bad things that I think this is ultimately going to result in. So I'm just going to go to sleep every night and continue to hope that the city of Santa Monica has a successful overturning of the court verdict, and that we can get rid of this solution to the problem that Folsom doesn't have. So, thanks to the lone clapper out there. So, anybody else have any comments? If not, we have a motion for map 2. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes.
Chalem Chella?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Howell?
No, sorry. But map 2 it is.
And Madam Mayor, may I seek clarification, perhaps with another vote with respect to sequencing?
I'll make a motion that the sequence of elections be districts 1, 3, and 5 in 2022, and then 2 and 4 in 2024, and then continue apace with 4-year terms.
I'll second.
Any other questions or comments? The clerk would call the roll, please. Sarah?
Well, I was just curious if we want to open that up to public comment.
Sure.
Input, just because that's kind of a different conversation than what people didn't really
Do we have
address it
anybody in the
their
room that
comments.
would like to comment about the sequencing?
Yeah, you have Mr. Rafferty
Do I see a person coming down to speak to that?
and Martha Lofgren.
Martha Lofgren, 106 North Granite Circle. I don't see the district numbers on the map, so could you just let us know what the numbers correspond to?
Let me come back out so you can see it.
They're just pretty small, so we'll just zoom in a bit. Mr. Yocum, maybe you could just read out the numbers and the color, corresponding
Would
color.
the PDFs be better, or would this map be preferable?
PDF, please.
One is this is, preferred number 2. 1 is the Northern District. 2 is central there next to 5. 4 is on the south side next to Highway 50. And 3 is on the east side of the city.
I don't have any comments.
Okay, thanks.
Will you put up the PDF and show us which council member reside in which district?
There is a clear map if we can.
We're good. We're good, Doug.
You're good, all right.
Well, sequencing was supposedly decided last time, and then in the agenda that came out, it was brought up again. And unfortunately, I think the law is pretty clear that the criteria that you've been given is not appropriate. You cannot simply take into account your preferences. You have to give a serious consideration to the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act. Everybody has always understood that is the high Asian district, in this case, has a serious deficit. In a document that I sent you that you didn't include in the agenda packet, and it has to go in a presidential year. No other city has tried to defy that. It has nothing to do with who you are or when you're up. That's just a factor that you need to consider, and you've been told by your attorney you don't. So that's one of the reasons we're in court, I guess. I'd like to find a way to resolve this otherwise, but you seem to think that you can do whatever you want. And you made a clear record of that, so we'll have to pursue it. But this isn't supposed to be about you. It's supposed to be about the voters. And you're making it about you and preserving yourselves in office. And that's simply incorrect. Thank you.
If I may respond to Mr. Rafferty's comment real
Sure.
quick, Madam Mayor. So the council is aware that the question of sequencing does require the council to give special consideration to the purpose of the CVRA, the California Voting Rights Act, which the council has done, and also take into account the preferences expressed by members of the districts, which the council has also done. The council is the decision maker with respect to sequencing as to the years, so that 3 council members will be elected 1 year, followed by 2 council members elected 2 years after. So there's always going to be 5 council members serving staggered terms. I believe the council is aware of that. That's why we're just asking for confirmation of the council's desire with respect to sequencing.
And that's pretty much how it's always worked. So thank you for that clarification, Steve.
And you do have one request to speak from somebody online and in the audience again. Daniela, we'll get to you in just a moment.
Bruce Klein, Rebecca Way, I agree, 135 is the only thing that makes sense. You have 3 council members coming up this next year. So keep on the cycle that you already have on if you're going to go with this map, which you of course are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Daniela, when you're ready, go ahead.
Sure, I would just second the comment that was suggesting having District 3 vote in 2024 in terms of sequencing rather than this coming year, so that more people who will be moving in over the next couple of years get a chance to voice their preference.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more call for anybody online who wants to raise their hand. Okay, seeing none, we will move on.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion suggesting that we do.
We already have it? Okay.
Yeah.
We have a motion, we have a second? Call the roll, please.
Council members Rodriguez,
Yes.
Aquino,
Yes.
Chalem-Chierla,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
and Howell.
Yes.
Okay, we've moved around on the agenda a bit tonight, but this takes us to city manager reports.
Good evening, everyone. The City of Folsom Environmental and Water Resources Department is rehabilitating and replacing portions of the city's water distribution system to improve water reliability. This maintenance and construction work may require a one-day water service outage at homes or businesses. The earliest the work will begin will be about mid-March. Affected areas include Duchow Way, Talisman Drive, Evelyn Way, Darrington Drive, Evelyn Court, Moreland Court, Metz Court, Economy Court, Rawlings Court, Orange Blossom Circle, Briggs Ranch Drive, Coloma Street, Tony Court, Mercy Hospital, near Creekside Drive, Marietta Court, Prairie City Road, and parts of East Bidwell Street and Natoma Street. You can find out more on our website. The application window for local nonprofit groups to sell state-approved fireworks in the city of Folsom runs through noon on March 18th. Folsom clubs such as youth sports groups, school booster clubs, and other civic organizations are eligible to sell safe and sane fireworks to the public during the 4th of July holiday season as a way to raise money for their Folsom-based organizations. The Steve Miklos Aquatic Center offers a great lineup of summer swim lessons through its popular Sea Squad Swim School. I'm not going to say that 3 times. Lessons
It's like White Rock Road.
Lessons for ages 3 to 15 are available for those who are just beginning and developing water confidence, as well as students who want to advance and build on existing swim skills. And you can find out more at our website. And the City Council will consider new rules for home-based businesses at their regularly scheduled meeting at 6:30 p.m. on March 8th. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on small businesses and the growing trend toward home-based businesses, City Council directed the Community Development Department to review and update the current set of rules. The new ordinance will amend the rules covering home occupation permits in our code. Residents operating home-based businesses must have a city business license and a home occupation permit. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, Sarah.
No report.
Mike?
Just one thing, we had our SACOG general meeting on Thursday last week, and the race, equity, and inclusion statement that we had talked about at my previous committee meeting was passed by the full board. I shared a copy of it with the city manager and the rest of the council members earlier this afternoon. It's maybe not something that we have to take any action on, but it's a nice touch point if you're ever interested in having a conversation on that topic.
Okay, okay.
Yep, I have a few comments to make and maybe a request also, Mayor, at the end. The districts, I know finally we voted, fourth review, and we gave enough time. That's what we believe in. And we took, I think, majority or most of the comments. Of course, again, squeezing ball one side, try to accommodate all the community of interest and keep the CVRA loss of differentiation of 10 points. Nevertheless, thank you again for all the community members who are actively participated in this one. And I just want to acknowledge that one. Thank you. And other one is, I want to thank Chamber for offering the, some of those sublease activities to historic districts. Thank you, Joe, wherever you are. We were requesting at the end. And one request to Elaine. I know people ask for why we are releasing the water from Folsom Dam, right? They think like a Folsom Dam is Folsom's, even though it is not.
Oh, I actually go out there every afternoon and I decide.
Right. If we have, any way we can pass some information through our e-newsletter,
yes.
And giving them a link where, who makes the decision, not city council or city.
That's a great idea. We can clarify that.
Right. That helps because people still think, right, we are still on drought and
But
people...
it does look beautiful coming down the spillway. If you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful sight.
Right. Guaranteed rainbow. And also, on the, sympathy note, my sincere prayers and thoughts to those people who left us and for their families. Again, my thanks and prayers. Last one but not least, I just want Mayor Hall, whether if you can consider, Everett Bliss is one of the active volunteers in the historic district area. He is an ambassador, and he is a prominent casting director for over 25 films, and he is a major part of community committee volunteer for the historic downtown parade as well as the lights up, and we lost him a couple of weeks ago. If you don't mind, if you can close this meeting in the memory of Mr. Everett Blix, I would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I don't actually have a lot to report on my other committees. Regional SAN meets tomorrow. Nothing exciting necessarily happening there, which is a good thing. Construction continues on Folsom's last portion of the connector. I will try to find out, well, actually, some of our staff was here earlier, so probably better way to get an answer as to when that light is going to be installed at East Bidwell and White Rock by our own staff. I had asked that that project be front-loaded to get that light installed sooner rather than later. Great news about the railroad. I'm not really sure why the folks at PV or PSVRR don't ever seem to call me before they come for this, because I'm still the chair of the Joint Powers Authority that oversees that alignment. So I will be sure to get in touch with those folks, but that was really cool to see that the locomotive has been brought and that they actually took it out and ran it on the tracks. I know I saw quite a bit of commentary on social media that people thought it was super cool. So to some of my former colleagues who used to say that everybody thought that was a pain in the neck when they were taking the Skagit or whichever vehicle they had when they were going down East Bidwell, I will recall a number of times that I was actually on it with them, and that's never the reaction that we saw. Whenever people had to stop for the flaggers at crossings like at Oak Avenue or wherever it was, all the people were smiling, kids were waving out the window, and it was a similar situation when the Chamber did an economic development trip to New Mexico a few years ago, because we took a train ride there too. The same thing. Every time we went across a roadway, we were in flatlands in New Mexico, but so there'd be people with pickup trucks and their dogs in the back, and they would sit there and laugh, and the dogs would bark, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a minor inconvenience that most people, it will make them smile and brighten up their day. So
I rode one of the test runs on Sunday morning, and that is exactly the reaction from everybody. There was people in their backyards and all the streets and everything waving.
They think it's pretty cool, and and then the fact that they're out there helps increase the ridership for their little sojourns when they do them, and that's how they continue to operate. And it's a great job, because people that love railroads will go. They have money, they'll get in their car and they'll drive to places just to take trains, or they'll fly to places just to take trains. So I think that's a really cool thing. So really happy to see that. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you. I didn't mean to.
Just for that, I'm going to read everything on my list. I want to give my condolences to the families of the deceased individuals from the Folsom Lake Crossing head-on collision last week. I also want our police officers and firefighters to know that I recognize this is a tough part of your jobs, and I appreciate your commitment to what you do day in and day out. I also want to share that I have zero tolerance for the hate crimes, such as the vandalism that took place on Carmody Circle. I expect that a thorough investigation will take place to identify those individuals and prosecute them to the full extent of the law. I also want to share a great job to Jeannie from Jake's Journey Home and her helpers, Heather and Beth, who were able to help an individual, Eddie, get off the street. Eddie has been homeless for about 15 years here in Folsom. He was one that built these pretty incredible wooden, shacks in our areas. And so he is getting the keys to his apartment on Thursday. And so I appreciate these ladies for what they do. I also want to encourage you all to support your favorite local businesses and thank them for their effort to stay in business. As a business owner, these are some really challenging times with employees and getting product. And so if you get a chance, just thank your favorite business owners for what they do. And also, Mayor Howell, I look forward to your State of the City on Thursday and hear about all the exciting things we have planned for 2022. That's it.
Yeah, and I wasn't actually done. Chris just gone, Rosario. So, because I did mean to have you speak first. Sorry about that. But I want to echo the comments about the racist graffiti that showed up in Folsom there. That is completely appalling. I'm disgusted that would happen in a community like this, and frankly shocked. I know we see that happens in other places, but I never, ever, ever would have expected that to have happened here. And I certainly hope that those people are found. I know that the last time I recall this happening, it was kids that were vandalizing mailboxes and stuff, and fortunately they were stupid enough to post it on Facebook, and their parents got the bill for having to repair all that. I'm hoping that this is stupid teenagers that have done this, and that they are caught and held to account. There's never an excuse for anything like this. Again, condolences to the families who lost their loved ones in that tragic accident on Folsom Lake Crossing. We are, in fact, in the process of designing safety improvements that will likely include a median. I have always had concerns about that roadway. Going back to the original design, I wanted a barrier to start with. My personal recommendation is whenever I drive across that structure, I stay in the far right lane, and I absolutely obey the speed limit, and I'm ultra cautious watching traffic coming at me for fear that somebody's fallen asleep, that they're looking at their phone, they're more involved with their cup of coffee. So please just pay attention there. As was stated in the news report, and as most people logically understand, even if you're driving the speed limit, it's your speed basically doubles. If you get hit in a head-on collision, it's the effect that you're driving twice the speed that you were driving at, and you just drove into a brick wall. So that, driver always loses in that instance. Stop signs are there for a reason, and those of you who frequent council meetings or watch these meetings understand that a lot of science and engineering skill goes into where those are put, where lights are put. There's a reason for signals. And it means that if the light is turning yellow, you should stop, because you don't know how fast the other guy's going to go. And, you know, you want to get T-boned, isn't it better to be 2 minutes late than never arrive? So please pay attention and drive like your mother's behind you. And those people that are out walking at night, all black is just not a good choice. Might be a good fashion choice, but you can't be seen. So with that, I will honor YK's request to
Mr. Blix,
adjourn the meeting. And if I had a gavel, I would do that at 8:11.